She laughed at the idea of breeding with a human. Now she carries his legacy. The mockery commander Zephyra Valath stood at the helm of the Virelian dreadnought Crimson Talon, her violet skin gleaming under the bridge's amber lights. Her officers clustered around the tactical display, their elongated limbs gesturing at holographic star charts showing the Terran frontier. The intelligence reports suggest increased human activity in the Kepler sectors, reported Lieutenant Thane Korvik, his third eye blinking nervously. They're establishing new colonies despite our containment protocols. Zephyra's mandibles clicked in amusement. The Virelians had ruled the galaxy for 3 millennia, their empire spanning 10,000 worlds. Humans, those bipedal mammals from the backwater planet Earth, were nothing more than an amusing curiosity, primitive creatures who had barely crawled beyond their solar system. Send a message to High Command, Zephyra ordered, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had never known defeat. Tell them Commander Valath will handle this human infestation personally. As her crew prepared for departure, conversation drifted to the latest gossip from the capital world of Virelia Prime. Rumors had been circulating about genetic experiments, about the theoretical possibility of cross-species reproduction between Virelians and other sentient races. Can you imagine? Laughed Sub-Commander Nexus Vorn, his scaled features twisted in disgust. The scientists are actually studying whether our species could breed with humans. The bridge erupted in laughter. Zephyra's own chuckle was particularly harsh. Breed with a human? She scoffed, her tail lashing behind her. I'd sooner mate with a plasma eel from the methane swamps of Tethys. Those creatures have more intelligence than the average human. Her officers roared with laughter. But Zephyra continued, warming to her subject. Think about it, their pathetic emotional displays, their weakness, their ridiculous attachment to concepts like love and compassion. They're barely evolved beyond tree-dwelling primates. But Commander, Thane ventured, some reports suggest they're surprisingly resourceful in combat situations. Zephyra waved a dismissive hand. Survival instinct, nothing more. Even the lowest predators fight when cornered. That doesn't make them worthy of respect, let alone intimate consideration. The conversation was interrupted by a priority alert. Long-range sensors had detected a human vessel attempting to establish a listening post in the contested Orion Nebula. This was exactly the kind of territorial violation that demanded immediate response. Set course for the nebula, Zephyra commanded. We'll show these humans what happens when they trespass in Virelian space. The journey took 4 standard days. During that time, Zephyra reviewed intelligence files on human military capabilities. She had to admit, grudgingly, that they showed surprising tactical creativity for such a young species. But creativity meant nothing against superior technology and centuries of military experience. The human ship was smaller than expected, a modified cargo hauler called the Terra's Hope. Zephyra almost felt insulted that humanity would send such a pitiful vessel into contested space. Hail them, she ordered. The view screen shimmered, revealing the bridge of the human ship. At its center stood a man with dark hair and determined brown eyes. He wore the blue uniform of the Terran Defense Force, and despite being vastly outgunned, he showed no signs of fear. I am Captain Dryas Thorn of the United Earth Coalition, he said, his voice steady. You are in violation of the Neutral Zone Accords. Zephyra laughed, the sound echoing through her bridge. Human, you are in no position to cite treaties. Surrender your vessel, and I might allow your crew to live. Thorn's jaw tightened. The Terra's Hope is a scientific vessel. We're conducting legitimate research into Virelian military positions. No doubt, Zephyra replied. Your species' capacity for deception is well documented. The human captain straightened. We're studying stellar phenomena in the nebula. Our mission is purely scientific. How charmingly naive, Zephyra mused. Very well, Captain Thorn. Surrender now, and I'll add you to my collection of human specimens. Your government might even pay a decent ransom. The transmission ended abruptly. As Thorn cut the channel, Zephyra smiled, her predatory instincts awakening. The hunt was about to begin. The Falth battle was supposed to be a simple demonstration of Virelian superiority. Zephyra's dreadnought outmassed the human vessel 10-1. With weapons capable of cracking planets, the Terra's hope should have been vaporized within minutes. Instead, Captain Thorne proved why humans had survived as long as they had in a hostile galaxy. "Commander, they're using the nebula's electromagnetic interference to mask their position," reported Thane, his voice tense with concentration. "Our targeting systems can't lock on." Zephyra watched the tactical display with growing irritation. The human ship darted between dense gas clouds, using the nebula's natural properties as camouflage. Every time her gunners acquired a target lock, the Terra's hope vanished into another electromagnetic storm. "Clever," she admitted grudgingly, "but ultimately futile. Launch fighter squadrons flood the nebula with interceptors." 12 Virelian attack craft screamed away from the Crimson Talon, their pilots eager to claim the first human kill. But Thorne had anticipated this move. The Terra's hope released a cloud of metallic chaff that interfered with the fighters' navigation systems, causing two to collide in the swirling cosmic dust. "The human is making fools of us," Nexus growled, his reputation as a tactical officer suffering with each passing minute. Zephyra's pride was wounded more than her ship. She had boasted to high command about crushing this human incursion. Yet one modified cargo hauler was evading her entire battle group. "Enough games," she snarled. "All power to forward weapons. We'll blast our way through the nebula if necessary." The Dreadnought's main cannon charged with devastating energy. But as the Crimson Talon maneuvered for a clear shot, Thorne played his final card. The Terra's hope had been seeding the nebula with sensor mines, creating a detailed map of the electromagnetic disturbances. "Commander, massive energy surge detected bearing." The warning came too late. A pocket of compressed gas, destabilized by the nebula's magnetic fields, erupted directly beneath the Virelian dreadnought. The explosion didn't destroy the Crimson Talon, but it crippled her engines and sent her tumbling toward the nearest planet. In the chaos, Captain Thorne made a decision that would haunt him forever. Instead of escaping while the Virelians were disabled, he followed the crippled dreadnought into the planet's atmosphere. Attempting a rescue mission, both ships crashed on the jungle world of Kepler-4. Zephyra awakened to pain and the acrid smell of burning electronics. Half her bridge crew was dead, including Nexus. The ship's hull had cracked open like an egg, spilling Virelian technology across an alien forest floor. Through the gaping wound in her ship's side, she saw movement. A figure in a torn blue uniform was pulling survivors from the wreckage of the Terra's hope. Captain Darius Thorne, the human who had outsmarted her fleet, was now risking his life to save both his crew and hers. "Commander," Thane groaned from beneath a fallen beam. "The human, he's helping our people." Zephyra tried to stand, but gasped as pain shot through her left arm. It was broken in 3 places. Possibly worse, around her, the few surviving Virelians were too injured to fight. They were completely at the mercy of the humans they had tried to destroy. But instead of executing his enemies, Thorne was treating their wounds with salvaged medical supplies. "Why?" Zephyra whispered as the human captain approached her position. Thorne looked down at her with those strange brown eyes. "Because that's what decent people do," he said simply, if for the first time in her life. Commander Zephyra Valeth began to question everything she thought she knew about humanity. The species she had mocked as primitive and weak was showing more honor than her own people had in generations. As consciousness faded, she heard Thorne organizing survival teams, treating Virelian and human wounded with equal care. The last thing she saw before darkness claimed her was the human captain's face, illuminated by the alien sunrise. It was a face she would never forget. The bond consciousness returned slowly, accompanied by the sound of crackling fire and unfamiliar bird calls. Zephyra's violet eyes opened to find herself lying on a makeshift stretcher. Inside a crude shelter, her broken arm had been splinted with salvaged metal and bound with strips of fabric torn from human uniforms. "You're awake," said a voice she recognized. Captain Thorne sat nearby, tending a small cooking fire. His own injuries were evident, a deep gash across his forehead, burns on his hands from the crash. "Where are my people?" Zephyra demanded, though her voice came out weaker than intended. "Safe, what's left of them." Thorne's expression was grim. We lost 12 Virelians in the crash. Along with 8 of my crew, the survivors are in the other shelters. Zephyra tried to sit up, but immediately regretted it as pain flared through her torso. You should have left us to die. It would have been strategically sound, maybe. Thorn replied, stirring something that smelled surprisingly appetizing. But I'm not a strategist. I'm just a captain trying to keep people alive. The next few days blurred together in a haze of survival and unexpected cooperation. The planet's native life forms were largely harmless, but the climate was harsh and food scarce. Both species had to adapt to conditions neither was designed for. Zephyra found herself watching Thorn with growing fascination. We're Virelian. Officers commanded through fear and authority. He led by example. When food was short, he ate last. When dangerous work needed doing, he volunteered first. His crew followed him not out of obligation, but genuine loyalty. Your leadership style is unusual, she commented one evening as they shared watch duty. Thorn smiled, the expression transforming his weathered features. My grandmother used to say that anyone can give orders, but only leaders inspire people to give their best. Virelians don't have grandmothers, Zephyra said without thinking. Our young are raised in genetic castes, trained from birth for specific roles. Sounds lonely, Thorn observed. The comment struck her unexpectedly. Lonely. She had never considered her upbringing in those terms, but now she realized how isolated she had always been. Virelian society valued strength and success above all else. Personal connections were seen as weaknesses to be exploited. Tell me about Earth, she found herself saying. Thorn's eyes grew distant. It's beautiful in ways your sensors could never detect. Not just the blue oceans or green forests, but the way morning light catches in a child's laughter. The way lovers hold hands while watching sunset. The way communities come together in times of crisis. You speak of emotions as if they were virtues, Zephyra said, confusion evident in her voice. Aren't they? Thorn challenged. What good is intelligence without compassion? What's the point of power without love? Over the following weeks, as rescue seemed increasingly unlikely, something unprecedented began to happen. The Virelian commander who had once mocked the idea of human-alien bonding found herself drawn to this strange, emotional creature who treated her as an equal rather than a specimen. Thorn shared stories of his home world, his family, his dreams of peaceful exploration among the stars. In return, Zephyra found herself revealing things she had never told anyone: her doubts about the Empire's methods, her secret fascination with other cultures, her growing certainty that the Virelian way was not the only way. My people would call this treason, she admitted one night as they sat by the fire. What would you call it? Thorn asked softly. Zephyra looked into those warm brown eyes and felt something shift inside her chest, a warmth that had nothing to do with the flames. Growth, she whispered. The moment was interrupted by the distant sound of engines. Rescue. Ships were approaching, but whether they came as salvation or doom remained to be seen. Both Zephyra and Thorn reached for their weapons, but their hands touched briefly in the darkness. Neither pulled away immediately, and in that simple contact, both realized that something fundamental had changed between them. The ships that landed bore Virelian markings. The choice of 3 Virelian cruisers descended through Kepler 44 to B's atmosphere, like mechanical birds of prey, their hulls gleaming in the alien sun. Zephyra recognized the lead vessel, the Sovereign's Wrath, flagship of Fleet Admiral Kairos Malthon, her former mentor and one of the most ruthless commanders in the Empire. Stay behind me, she whispered to Thorn as armed Virelian soldiers emerged from the landing craft. Whatever happens, don't give them reason to consider you a threat. Admiral Malthon strode forward, his scarred face twisted in disgust as he surveyed the mixed human-Virelian camp, his golden eyes fixed on Zephyra with barely concealed fury. Commander Valeth, he said, his voice dripping with contempt, when I received your distress beacon, I expected to find you leading captured humans back to the fleet. Instead, I discover you've been cohabitating with them. We've been surviving, Admiral, Zephyra replied carefully. Captain Thorn and his crew showed mercy when they could have left us to die. Malthon's laugh was harsh as breaking glass. Mercy, is that what You call this collaboration with inferior species? He gestured to the mixed camp, where human and Virelian survivors had been working together for weeks. You've gone native. Commander, it's pathetic. Behind Malthan. Zephyra noticed the positioning of his troops. They weren't here for rescue, they were here for cleanup. Every human in the camp was about to be executed, and possibly the Virelians, who had contaminated themselves through contact. Admiral, I request permission to escort the human survivors to the nearest neutral zone, Zephyra said formally. They saved our lives and deserve safe passage. Denied. Malthan's response was immediate and final. The humans will be terminated. You and your remaining crew will undergo full decontamination and psychological reconditioning upon return to base. The words hit Zephyra like a physical blow. Decontamination meant memory wipe. Reconditioning meant having her personality rebuilt from scratch. She would cease to exist as surely as if they executed her alongside the humans. More importantly, they would kill Thorn. Admiral, she began, I must protest. You will protest nothing. Malthan roared, you have disgraced yourself and your species. The only reason you're not facing summary execution is your previous service record. Zephyra felt something crystallize inside her chest. For weeks, she had been changing, evolving, becoming something new. Thorn had shown her that strength could come from compassion, that true leadership meant protecting those who trusted you. Now she had a choice, return to the empire that had shaped her, or protect the man who had transformed her. I see, she said quietly, and Malthan relaxed, thinking he had won. In that case, Admiral, I have one final order to give. You're in no position to give orders. Commander, Malthan sneered. Zephyra smiled, and for the first time, it was a genuinely warm expression. This one isn't for you. She spun toward the human survivors and shouted in perfect English, run. Chaos erupted as Thorn's crew scattered into the jungle, following predetermined escape routes they had established during their weeks together. Zephyra drew her sidearm and fired at Malthan's troops, providing covering fire for the fleeing. Humans, you treacherous fool, Malthan bellowed, drawing his own weapon. You're choosing them over your own species. I'm choosing right over wrong, Zephyra replied, her shots forcing several Virelian soldiers to take cover. The firefight was brief but decisive. Outnumbered and outgunned, Zephyra couldn't win through force. Instead, she used tactics learned from watching Thorn misdirection, sacrifice, and the willingness to pay any price to protect those she cared about. A plasma bolt caught her in the shoulder, spinning her round and sending her weapon flying. As she fell, she saw Thorn breaking from the tree line, running back toward her despite her orders to flee. Dryas, no, she screamed, but he was already moving, laying down suppressing fire with a salvaged Virelian rifle. Malthan's shot was perfectly aimed, designed to kill the human who had corrupted his former protege, but Zephyra threw herself between them. Taking the bolt meant for Thorn. The energy beam punched through her chest, and she collapsed as her internal organs began shutting down. Thorn caught her as she fell, his face stricken with an emotion she had learned to recognize and treasure. Why? He whispered, cradling her against his chest. With her dying breath, Zephyra gave him the only answer that mattered, because I love you. But her story was far from over. Part 5. The legacy. Dr. Rachel Winters had seen impossible things during her career as Earth's leading xenobiologist, but nothing had prepared her for the unconscious Virelian female on her operating table. Commander Zephyra Valeth should have been dead, would have been dead, if not for Captain Thorn's desperate flight to Earth with stolen Virelian medical technology. Her physiology is completely different from anything we've encountered, Dr. Winters explained to the assembled team of specialists. Triple cardiovascular system, crystalline bone structure, neural pathways that process information at superhuman speeds. But somehow, she's alive. Thorn stood vigil beside the medical pod, his face haggard from weeks of worry. The journey from Kepler-4 to B had taken everything he had, stealing a Virelian scout ship, navigating unknown hyperspace routes, and fighting past Earth Defense Force patrols who considered him a traitor for protecting an alien. Commander, the wound is healing, Dr. Winters continued, but there's something else, something that should be impossible. What do you mean? Thorn asked. Though part of him already suspected the answer, she's pregnant, the words hung in the sterile air of the medical bay like a challenge to everything science thought it knew about biology. Cross-species reproduction between humans and Virelians was theoretically impossible. Different genetic structures, incompatible reproductive systems, evolutionary paths that had diverged millions of years ago. Yet here was proof that love could transcend even the fundamental laws of biology. Zephyra's eyes opened slowly, focusing first on the unfamiliar ceiling, then on Thorn's worried face. "How long?" she whispered. 3 weeks, he replied, taking her hand carefully. "We're on Earth. You're safe." She tried to sit up, then stopped, as Dr. Winters placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Commander, you need to rest. Your body has been through tremendous trauma." "The child," Zephyra said, her free hand moving instinctively to her abdomen. "Is it healthy?" Dr. Winters assured her, beyond all scientific explanation, but healthy. Over the following days, news of the impossible pregnancy spread through both human and Virelian space. Earth's government wanted to study Zephyra as a scientific specimen. The Virelian Empire declared her a traitor and demanded her immediate extradition for execution. Neither faction understood what Thorn and Zephyra knew in their hearts. Their child represented something new, a bridge between species that had been built not through conquest or diplomacy, but through love. "The baby will be hunted," Zephyra said during one of their quiet conversations. "Both our governments will see it as either a weapon or an abomination. Then we protect it." Thorn replied simply, "Whatever it takes." The final confrontation came when Admiral Malthan arrived in Earth orbit with a battle fleet, demanding Zephyra's surrender. At the same time, Earth's military leaders prepared to dissect the first human-Virelian hybrid. In the name of science, standing together on the observation deck of the medical facility, Thorn and Zephyra watched the hostile fleets position themselves for battle. Two civilizations preparing to destroy each other over the right to control their child. "There's another option," Zephyra said quietly. "My people have a saying, the strongest steel is forged in the hottest fire. Maybe our child isn't meant to choose sides. Maybe it's meant to create something entirely new." 6 months later, their daughter was born on a neutral space station at the edge of known space. Kira Thorn-Valeth had her mother's violet eyes and her father's warm smile, along with capabilities that neither species fully understood. As she grew, Kira became a symbol of what was possible when different peoples chose cooperation over conflict. Her very existence proved that evolution wasn't just about survival of the fittest sometimes. It was about the courage to become something better. The woman who had once laughed at the idea of breeding with a human now watched her daughter play with children of a dozen different species, all of them learning that differences were not barriers to be overcome, but strengths to be celebrated. "She's going to change everything," Thorn observed. Watching Kira teach a young Virelian boy how to laugh, Zephyra smiled. The expression that had once been cold and predatory now warm with maternal love. She already has. In the end, their legacy wasn't just genetic, it was proof that the greatest strength in the universe wasn't military might or technological superiority, but the simple, revolutionary act of choosing love over fear. The galaxy would never be the same.